Hey, good afternoon. This is JVSight Solutions. On this channel, we're just going to work on a series of videos for mastering IT monitoring. The first video that we're doing today is related to event management and creating an event rule that is processed from a monitoring tool into event management in ServiceNow. So we are looking at event management, one of the favorite tools that we have that we like, because it allows you to process monitoring events from different sources. And because in ServiceNow, you do have your CNDB where you manage all your assets, applications, servers, it makes it easier for your operations team to be able to generate the reports, obviously, take a look at the impact that these events are generating, right? Impacted applications, impacted business services. But again, just take a look at our channel, JVSight Solutions, and we're working on a blueprint for optimizing event management and noise reduction. As I mentioned before, we're going to start working on creating an event rule, right? So we do have an event that came over as a warning. It's a CPU utilization. So what we want to do is turn this into a higher severity, right? A major or minor severity. Here's the event that is processed. Here's the alert that was created. And you open the record, you could see it's just simply a metric that says CPU utilization, your description on it. So what we want to do is make this severity maybe a major or critical, and basically so it gets the attention of the people working on it. One of the things that we like to do is when we're working from the event table is to actually use the UI action to create the event rule to generate an alert off that table. The reason why we like doing this is because it brings the data over, right? As you can see right away, it brings the source for that, and we're just going to call this application monitor. Here is just the source. Is obviously you pulled it from the event, right? The order is the order of execution. If you're familiar with ServiceNow, business rules or client scripts, and you provide an order which determines which of your, in this case, which of your rules is going to be executed first, right? We tend to use the same order, and because basically we do like to target our events with a filter, right? If it matches, it should execute. Next is the filter. Here's where you create your conditions for your filter. As I mentioned before, creating the event rule from the event table brings the data over, which makes it easier for you to configure your rule, right? So we're going to match. What we're going to say here is the metric name, right? So if the metric name is CPU utilization, right? We're going to create an alert. This points here. If you want to add additional information, if you want to say, well, if the description contains, you could use that as well, right? So but we're not going to do that. We already know that our CPU utilization is what we want. It matches it, and it should be able to create an event based on that. If you want to ignore all of these events, all you have to do is build your conditions and check this, and it will ignore all of the events that come through, right? But obviously we do want to make this a higher severity, and we want to generate an alert. So here's the part that becomes nice, right? Here's your transformation, and this is, again, and I will say it again, creating the event rule from the event table allows you to have access to all of the data in the event, which makes it easy for you to play around with the different fields within the event table. And the fields are coming from the event itself, right? So obviously we saw that there was not much in the description. We could say this is a critical alert. Please investigate all CPU utilization events. What I'm doing here is just adding to that description, right? This field here, the variable here, is this one, right? And it will put in here anything that's coming from that. the message key is obviously is very important, right? Because that key is used to correlate all these events, right, with the rule. But also when you are using automation to create incident or escalations, that message key becomes important because it's going to be used to correlate that alert with a particular incident, and it will be able to go back and forth, right? So what we're going to do here is just, I want to add the node, the IP. In this case, it's an IP, it could be a name, right? We're going to add that to the message key. So just to add a little bit more to the event. On the threshold here, it's right now we don't have one, right? So we're basically saying when we get this match in the condition, I want an alert. But let's say, for example, this becomes noisy, and you say, hey, I only want to be notified if the threshold occurs 5 times in 5 minutes, let's say, right? You'll be able to do this. But at this point, for the purpose of this demo, we're just going to make it 1, and we get it. Binding is important, right? Especially if you're using the CNDB in ServiceNow. It will allow you the opportunity to search that CNDB, look up for servers or whatever, any devices under this hardware table, right? Which is the table that gets extended for Windows servers, Linux servers. But this is usually the default information binding, which uses the name of the CI, the fully qualified domain name, the IP address or the MAC address or the host CIs, right? It will use that information to bind your alert to a configuration item. And you'll see that because this becomes important, right? Especially if you have service map and you for the team that's monitoring, they will see which application is impacted, which business service or offerings are impacted. So this allows the team to be able to do that, right? But most of the time this is enough. But if you do want to override this, because let's say, for example, this is a router, right? An IP router, let's say a router, and you could use different identifiers from your event to match, right? So let's say, for example, you want to you could match different fields from here and use it in there. But again, our experience here, over 90% of the time, the default rule works. It's usually when you're looking at different devices and services. What I've seen is when you're looking at mainframe applications or mainframe hardware that usually don't have the discovery capabilities like you do for other applications, you might have to play around a little bit with the binding. But the default binding works perfect. It's really nothing you need to do this out there. So just gonna save the event so you can see it. What we're going to do is we're going to go back to the event table, right? And we're going to take that original event that we process over as a warning, and we're going to reprocess it. I just realized one thing. I never changed the severity of the alert that I wanted to generate, right? So we're going to go back to the event rule. So here are all the event rules. You just type event rules under event management. We'll take you back there. So on the transformation, this is where it becomes key. So right now we're using the severity that comes from the event, but we don't want that, right? Because severity of 4, it's a warning. We want to make this maybe a 2. Let me see, a 2 is more like major or critical. So I'm going to save that. And we're going to go back to all the events, right? And we're going to reprocess so you can see it. Here's the warning, right, that I was working from. Right here, we open this record and we go back to it. We clear the alert. We make it ready. Let's just move this. There's all the processing notes so you could get a new one. And then you save it. We'll refresh this. All right, so here's the alert, right? Now it's processed. This is what I like about the processing notes right here. Right away, you can see the event rule that was supplied. It was the one we just created called JVSight application monitor. We're going to bring this up. Remember how before this was a warning? Now it says, since I made this already a 2, it made this a major alert right here. So again, here's the resources, the performance monitor is server monitor, the node. Remember what I was talking about, the binding of the on the resource. Right here, it brings that information over. It creates it binds to this server, and then you can see all that information, right? One of the things I like is if you bring up the workspace in event management, it give you a kind of like a nicer view of what's going on here, right? So you can look at the details. Here's the description that comes with it. This is the description that we added, right, to make a little bit more, provide more context if you need to. There's the configuration item information. It's a Windows server, and impact the services. Obviously, we don't have any mapping done here for application, but if you did, it will show your application services that this server support, right? So I'll play around with that later, where I could create some sort of relationship, and it will impact that, right? So if there's anything going on, if there is a change going on that might have caused the alert, you might see the probable root causes here, so you could take a look and reach out to the change owner and say, hey, we received this alert while you were doing this change. Is this something that you caused? And they could take a look at, right? Or sometimes they don't even know that they're causing these issues, right? So this is a good way to go back. One thing I also like is the dashboards. For it's kind of like intelligence within the monitoring. So if you are a application monitoring team, or you are a operations team that's always looking at events and alerts, this is a good dashboard, right? Because it will give you noise reduction, right? The percentage of where you are since a particular date. You could take a look at the different sources of your alerts, right? Here's the top 20 sources, and you have the different tools. We just manually generated this to have some data in the dashboard, right? But you can also look at the event sources. Remember, you have your event table processing events. You might be dropping some of those events. You don't need those events. So you can take a look at which sources are generating the most events, right? And then on your alert table, you can take a look at which ones are generating the most alert, right? And it's all based on your configuration. Here's another item here. It says alerts without a configuration item. I talked a little bit about binding, right? So if the alert is not binded to a particular CI, a configuration item within your CNDB, you're going to start getting that information in here, which is very important, right? Because that means that there are CIs or servers out there that are being used, but they're not in your CNDB, and they might need to be in there, right? Also, here's the grouping, kind of like from the different areas of those groups. When you have repeated events and alerts, the tool is smart enough to start grouping them, right? They're coming from the same server, and there's similarity on the metrics and the resources where it's coming from. It starts grouping these alerts. And obviously at the bottom here, this is the the most impacted configuration items. So for example, we have been testing with this server right here, SAP New York O2. There's about 9 alerts associated with that particular server. What's good here is obviously the information that could be used for people that support, right? Obviously, we don't have no info in the CNDB for these devices. This is just a personal instance. But if it was owned or supported by a particular group, you could always send that information over to the team and say, hey, look, your server that you support, that you own, has been generating all these events and alert, and you could use that information to create a problem ticket and investigate. But I just want to thank you for your time today. Hopefully you like this tool. We do like event management in ServiceNow, because it, again, as I said it before, allows you to process events from different sources, right? You know that people use System Operations Manager for Windows-based servers, Dynatrace for application performance monitoring, or Unix or Linux-based servers, right? You have your network devices for SolarWinds and things like that. And all these tools could be sending their events into event management, and you could do your correlation and your reporting of this tool that will help you enhance your monitoring, and obviously the number one goal, which is reducing the unnecessary alerts, right? The unnecessary noise that no one needs. Thank you for your time.